Now, you may or may not realise we've got something pretty special happening tonight, right? Yeah. In fact, look, no matter what your friends are doing tonight, you've got those guys beat, because seriously, this is pretty bloody surreal. In fact, I still don't actually know it's kind of real. I mean, luckily I just met Yahoo Serious, so I know he's definitely here. But while I was waiting for him to turn up, it dawned on me that I've talked to this guy on the phone a few times, but I had no actual proof that it was actually Yahoo Serious and that he was actually coming. So it got a little bit scary there for a second. Okay, you may have just made the biggest mistake of your life. Now guys, before we get this incredibly talented and enigmatic legend, Aussie legend on stage, I'll just tell you guys a little brief history of how this event happened. So, the young Einstein anniversary was coming up. It was actually, slightly just before Christmas, but don't hold it against us. We, saw the 30th anniversary thing. We thought, look, let's play the movie again. We love this movie, one of our favourites from our childhood. I'm sure a lot of you guys grew up with the movie as well, right? Yeah. I'm sure you probably wore out that VHS tape. Your parents probably loved you for. In fact, Yahoo was just saying that he's had a few parents want to murder him for that very reason. As we do, as the Orpheum does, we thought, let's book a screening of Young Einstein to celebrate the 30th anniversary. And it popped into my head that, look, I know Yahoo lives locally. I know he doesn't really do this stuff anymore. He's a very private guy. The chances of him wanting to come to the Orpheum, as great as we are, to do a Q&A is pretty damn slim. So I reached out to the distributor of the film anyway and said, look, guys, what are the chances you've got some contact details for Yahoo Serious? They said, nah, don't get your hopes up. Highly unlikely. They ended up, maybe a week later, sending through an email address and a phone number, and there I was, typing away, very nice little email. Dear Mr. Yahoo, big fans, love you. No, you're not interested in this at all. But would would it enter your mind to possibly come and do a little intro or a Q&A for us in front of some fans? And about 2 days later, the box office calls me, and they say, there's a Yahoo Serious on the phone for you. Now, I collect myself up off the floor because I'm obviously not expecting that. And I'm thinking, man, I'm really glad that the person in the box office did not think that was a prank call. Because that sounds like a prank call. And then we proceeded to have this really lovely chat. He's a really warm, lovely guy. Got really excited about the possibility of coming out and seeing some fans and telling some stories and doing all that kind of thing. And yeah, it was like, absolutely, I'll be there. Let's work out a date. So we're very lucky that he's here tonight, and it's my great pleasure to welcome onto the stage one of Australia's great comedy legends, Mr. Yahoo Serious. I can assure you, everyone in this audience is very excited to be here, and this is not lost on us how rare an opportunity this is. So thank you. What about half? 30 years for young Einstein.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Well, all of you probably going in with it 30 years ago. It's strange to look back, and I haven't seen the film in quite some time now, and I haven't seen it on the big screen for probably nearly 30 years or something. So I'm very excited to see it tonight. I was a bit worried. Because Alex, I said, where'd you get the print, Alex? And he said, oh, it was the original print. And I went, oh, well, it's probably dark and it's probably got scratches. He said, no, the people that come along, they want the scratches or they don't think it's genuine.
I'm so glad that he's talking about the equality of the print now, which now you're going to be scrutinising more than we're going to. Well, I mean, the fact that there's 500 people here tonight to see this movie. Obviously, when you were making the movie, you had a feeling that you guys were doing something special. It was obviously something that seemed like it was working. Did you have any idea that 30 years later there'd be people still so eager to see the film on the big screen or to see yourself?
Well, I don't know if everyone knows the story of it, but it is one of those stories where nobody wanted to know about it. It's different now because I guess the name's accepted, but back then it was pretty hard to raise $1 with a name like Yahoo Serious. And so I really just had to go out and start filming some stuff. And I didn't really know anyone who could do the stuff that I'd written, so I just went in it. I wanted to be a film director, but I didn't know. I was interested in doing something original because I used to be a painter, and you just do the one square and you do all the characters and the art direction and the whole thing. And so I had to learn to write a bit to be able to express things, so you become a script writer, and so that you really have something that you want to direct. Because if you are a painter, you're an original artist. And I wasn't really interested in interpreting, being an interpretive artist, to really do something else once you've had the opportunity to do your own stuff. So I made some documentaries, and that was my own stuff, and I thought, oh well, let's just get going with this and find some actor that can do it later. But, there wasn't anyone that surfed and throw themselves down 50 flights of stairs and ride a horse and do all that. And so you find that when you are a writer, you reach inside to express yourself. And when you're expressing yourself, you're expressing your culture that you grow up in. And so I guess that's what I was doing. So the popularity of it in the end really was about us. And I grew up around Newcastle. In fact, most of Tasmania, we couldn't afford to go to Tasmania. So there's a lot up around there. If ever you're taking a drive from Wollombi, along the Wollombi Road to Cessnock, you can still see the Einstein house that you'll see tonight. And the only difference is that we threw some bark on the roof. Other than that, it's right there just before a little place called Millfield. But it's worth a look. But anyway, it was very difficult to make, and in fact I couldn't get any money to make it. It was only that I directed another thing and went to the world's first video festival in Saint-Tropez, and they were starting up MTV then, and there's a whole lot of people that was very interested in it because it was about music and stuff, but I'd only filmed a few scenes. Then that started a bit of a roller coaster where I could raise little bits of money along the way and film more and more to fill it in. And I think it was about 3 or 4 years before we eventually finished it. And I didn't know really what we had. I knew it was very different, but I knew it was about us. But what I found out was it was really about everybody. There was something about when you tap into your own story and you do it genuinely within your culture. It's universal and quite strange that it was a bit of a hit around the world, and that very much surprised me. And I wasn't ready for what happened. And I was just telling Alex I made Reckless Kelly, a modern day Ned Kelly film, to really get over what had happened in young Einstein. And then with that film, it looked again at the culture. I think that was about Marbo at that time, and I saw the banks as not as particularly good guys then, so we'd hold up banks and rob ATMs, which had just come out then, and we deposit the money in the bank accounts of people that can't pay off their housing loans. So the same stuff was relevant. But I guess getting back to Einstein, there was so much there. There was the genesis of it was a mate and I were travelling down the Amazon River, and there's not much to do on the Amazon River. We got on up upper reaches of it, and as we went down, there wasn't a lot to do, and so we put in and we'd buy some beer at each of the little lifting stations and stuff. And one of them, after about 2 weeks, the guy came on board and he went with our boat for a while, and he was the guy that would sell the beer. And I've got a picture of him on my wall at home, and it's a picture you might have seen of Einstein poking his tongue out in about the age of 72 or something. And then I knew a bit about him. I knew he was a 26-year-old office clerk, and I knew he played the violin, and I knew he was made of Charlie Chaplin's, and we both loved playing the violin together. And I knew that he renounced his German citizenship and went and lived in Switzerland when he was a young man, and so he was working at a patent office, and he was 26-year-old when he came up with E equals mc squared and the theory of relativity in the same year, and he liked music, and so that on that trip on the Amazon River, I started writing, and basically came up very much on the first day with that the title Young Einstein, and in 1905 he discovers the theory of relativity. In 1906 he invents rock and roll. And then a little while after that, I had some friends in New York, and I went up and I was continually writing. It was a big city and everything, and I thought, oh yeah, well, you know, well, gee, I'm an Australian, where do I want to set it? And then I thought of science, and I thought of who was a great guy before Einstein. And Einstein used up all of physics, you know, and he had to really invent some new stuff. He failed maths at school, but went on to come up with a whole branch of mathematics. So it says something about the creative mind, and all of this really appealed to me. And so I got quite intense about writing it, but I thought of, well, where do you start? And then I thought of Newton. And then I thought of the Tasmanians, the apple island. And I thought, all right, well, we have this guy sitting under a tree, and, an apple tree, and the apple falls on his head, and he comes up with all of Newton's theories, and he goes to his mum, and she more or less goes, I mean, what goes up comes down. He goes, yeah. He says, Newton's already discovered that. So there's great, huge amounts of science which are not in this film, which I'll eventually pull out and put together maybe in a documentary stuff that we made. A lot of Australian satire based around physics and science, and I guess growing up in a very egalitarian society like Newcastle. It was a great privilege to also produce a soundtrack which went double platinum.
Questions, because as we've been advertising the screening for the last couple of months, one of the most common themes of things that people are excited about for the movie is the soundtrack. It's this classic Aussie soundtrack, some great artists on there. Did you handpick those artists, or how did that come? How did you involve them?
Some of friends, like Paul Kelly was, and he had a demo that he played for me called "I've Done All the Dumb Things," and so I had to match that with some dumb stuff. And one of the things that I did is I went and cut it. I used dumb things and cut it in the area of the film. I think he even put it. He cursed me in his autobiography when I said, "Oh, look, it needs to be just exactly like the." Like the demo that you played me. He goes, well, we were really bad doing that, and it slows up and speeds up and slows down and all. And I said, well, it's sort of got to be like that. And then he goes, oh, all right. So they went in there, just play faster and slower, and they were trying to match their own demo and stuff. And they finally got it right. And by that time, I filmed a whole lot more, and I had a better spot for it. And Paul really cursed me over that. I was straight southern land. I had a French girlfriend at the time, and we went to a concert, a Bowie concert in just outside of London, and I've been homesick. It was the same trip I'd been down the Amazon River and was writing Young Einstein, I think someone was supporting Bowie, and it was an English band, and they said something derogatory about Bowie, and he sacked them, and then hired Ivor from myself to go and be the sporting act. Anyway, Ivor went on and played a brand new song of his called Greatest Song in the Land, and I went, oh, hang on, I haven't been home for 6 months, and that resonated with me a lot, and I really wanted to marry it to our culture. So that just continued, and then it continued on in the next film with Mungaloy and I think India and things. So but that first soundtrack was a lot of, there was the Lime Spiders, they were pretty great. There was so many models, really some great Australian bands. And when you're using a lot of rock, it's really hard because it sounds fantastic when it first comes in, but after seconds even, you can start to stray you out of the story of the movie, and once you're outside of the movie, it's really hard to get it going back. So I work with some great, there's a really great old guy called Tommy Tico, and he was a great classical composer, and so I welded a lot of the rock and blues and the jazz and everything together with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. So that's why it has a big soundtrack, like it's, I want it to be like a big Lawrence of Arabia or a big Hollywood big thing, because I always thought, well, we're as good as anybody in this country, so we deserve our stories to be on a big stage.
Curious, while we're listening to Yahoo tell these great stories about making the film, the music, is there anyone in the audience who hasn't actually seen the movie yet? That's kind of cool. Where are you guys been? That's awesome, because you're going to have a whole new experience now, which is going to be quite interesting. And just in case it wasn't clear when Yahoo got on stage, he is actually going to hang around and watch the film with you guys. No pressure, he's watching, so it's going to be a wild ride. Now, Yahoo, I've got to tell you that when we were asking people through social media to volunteer some questions and some things that they want to hear about, I mean, you've covered a lot of that stuff, the music, the inspiration, all that kind of thing, the challenge making film. But one thing that did come up, and it's a very serious question, is where did you get the kittens?
Well, after they were movie stars, it wasn't hard to get them, but they went as quick as they went up. We didn't know we couldn't find them to do some extra shots because everyone wanted a souvenir one. I don't know if anyone here, or probably the Novocastrians, people from Newcastle would know, but there's a wonderful old fort that actually fired back at the Japanese sub that came up outside of Newcastle during World War II. But they had big gun emplacements, and it was a very, very old fort. I think it had been built back in the sailing ship days, and it was called Fort Scratchley. And so one of the young women that was very helpful on keeping the continuity together. She grabbed the first and most beautiful one, and she called it Scratchley. Perfect name for a cat. But there's actually you'll see the cats here, and we just released them. But there was actually there's a whole other scene where once the cats are released, at the same time there was a whole lot of dogs getting caught by a dog catcher, and this is a scene that isn't in the movie, and so all these this really smart dog opens the door and lets all the other dogs out, and they go free at the same time as the cats get free. So there's a whole lot more slapstick comedy that you won't have seen enough.
So that's what happened to the kittens. They're all capitalised, I'm sure. Well, they're dead now. They're definitely dead now. There are no 30-year-old cats, right? Now, Yahoo, probably the big question, like the absolute top question in everyone's mind in this room, is to find out why you left. Why you left? Why you seem to take an active step away from industry, and we'd like to know what you've been doing in the meantime.
I've been around for a while, so I know there's not. You probably can't describe it as an industry. Although we had the first feature-length film in the world, the story of the Kelly Gang, 1995. We were ahead of the whole world, and we had a massive industry per head of population, and it was, I think, even in working out the cost of living for a family to go to the cinema once a week was a part of the Australian budget. And the Americans came in and bought up our cinemas and would show Australian films, and then our industry died until the 70s, and then came back in a wave, and I guess I came on the end, that started making my way. And the same thing sort of happening again a little bit, but it's usually, for me, it's always about 7 years a cycle, because I write them and direct them and have to raise the money, and then they go in them and stuff, and so it's about 7 years a movie. You can't. If people ask you what's important, I sort of came across something, and I think it answers it in a way about the importance of the original art, and the difference with interpretive art. I love the interpretive art. I love doing it, but when I was offered a lot of films that became Hollywood hits, because that's what you're supposed to do. When you come to movie stage, you're supposed to do what they want you to. And I wasn't really that interested in doing that. The thing that I explained by it is this thing to be original, to be an artist, to be a tribe in a way, and that can be of the world itself. For me, it's been about Australia. As I say to people, who played Hamlet? Who was the first person to ever play Hamlet? And I said, well, who directed it? And they go, oh, I don't know. And I say, who wrote it? And everyone can answer who wrote Hamlet. And I think that shows you something, the test of time and the importance of the different art forms of what is important. That way today, and people would say, well, the director's really important, the actor's really important, oh, the producer. But you don't have a great movie unless you've got a great script. And it's a vague enough. If you think about moving pictures and sound, and that's the incredible thing. You see, we could never look back, hundred years ago. But we couldn't look back at ourselves as human people, as a species, moving through time in a real way. We didn't know what that was. You could look in the mirror, but all there was paintings, or even then, it's still photograph. But once we could see ourselves moving in time, and then in about 1930 we married sound to it, we had this new art form. It's a baby art form, but I used to be a painter, and I stopped painting as soon as I went to art school, because I realised what art could be with this thing where you combine all the different art forms. You've got theatre, and you've got dance, and you've got literature, and you've got painting, you've got you've got a rock band, and you've got a symphony orchestra, you've got everything. So you've got all these different art forms, and within that, all these different interpretations within that. And you can do comedy, you can do drama, you can do anything about human existence, and you can see it for real, and people can give you 2 hours of their time, as you're doing tonight, 93 minutes, to watch something really about yourselves. So that's a great privilege, and if you think in all the history of humankind, this has only been going on since 1930, so it's a baby of an art form. It's like a little kid that's trying to learn to walk, so it's still very primitive in terms of what it's going to be. So what I look forward to is always doing something new, and that's what I will do. I was very privileged in when Movie World and the Gold Coast opened up, they Warner Brothers asked me to be the Australian going to that. And, I've been privileged previously to meet Clint Eastwood when I was releasing Young Einstein, and I went up to him. I'd just come back from my honeymoon in Africa, and I'd stayed in this place, and I'd just seen Black Under White Heart, which probably none of you has seen, but one of Clint's movies, and another one called Blurred, and I'd seen that, and he was Clint Eastwood, and he was this amazing man, you know, that produces and directs and stars in his stuff, and you know, I just went up and, you know, said, oh look, you know, I just want to say I love Bird and I love Black Under White Heart, and we talked about them for a little while, and then he came out to open Movie World with Mel and some other people, and he arrived and you know, we talked about different stuff. And he said, "Oh, what are you doing, Yahoo?" And so I'm going to do Ned Kelly. And he told me, "Oh, I was going to do I was asked to do Ned Kelly, and Mick Jagger ended up doing it, but I was going to come out and do that. But then I did it at Spaghetti Western. It had me wearing some armour, so then it's too much to make some young kids. So I thought, no, I won't do that. And so I didn't come out. And I said, "Oh, what are you doing?" He said, "I'm doing a Western." You know, and I said, "Oh, geez, that's sort of great." And that Western that Clint did was Unforgiven, and basically that was like, that's Academy Award time. That was when all these started this great work. He was a great actor before that, and a really, really good director. But he became one of the greats after that. And when he arrived in Australia, we already knew each other, and he said, "Yeah, look, I cheated it. I cheated. It was either his 63rd or 64th birthday." And he said, I crossed the date line, and so I skipped my birthday, so I'm actually a year younger. He was in his mid-60s then, which I am now. And so he gives me hope that it's sort of okay to do stuff, and I have been writing, and I think. And I don't know. You don't know if people are going to like it, or just get too radical, or, you know, you just lost the plot or whatever. I do hope, and I think I will, continue to make some movies.
Except maybe the 12 people who haven't seen it. Don't know what to expect. Now, Yahoo, just before we wrap things up, I just wanted you to quickly touch on the Kokoda Track Foundation, which you're part of, and just tell us a little bit about what that is and what you've been doing with them, because you may not realise there's actually $5 per ticket tonight going towards that very good cause.
Yes, I'm one of the founding directors. We founded in, I think, 2002, the Kokoda Track Foundation, and we do a lot of work. That's a non-government organisation and a not-for-profit organisation that I've always seen Papua New Guinea as something very special, and it was a filmmaker that made it special for me. On Anzac Day, they used to run a lot of great old Australian films, like Charles Riddell, films like Rats and Rook and 40,000 Horsemen, and they'd run them. They'd put the march on in the morning on telly, and then they'd run all this stuff. And they also would run these newsreels that used to be when I was a kid. They'd have these little cinemas that you just would go in and they'd run the news, because there wasn't, not too many people had television. In fact, I remember when we first got television, I was 5, and it really changed the world. But one of these particular movies, one of these particular newsreels they used to run was our first Academy Award. It was called Kokoda Frontline. It was by a guy called Damien Parra, and he died not on Kokoda, but he turned it around, and when Australians were told they were cowards for retreating on the Kokoda Track, he and some others told the real story, which was the fact that we were out, moving out, going, we decided to keep withdrawing and stretch the Japanese lines, and we became the first allies to defeat the Japanese in Papua New Guinea. And I've always realised that, and we wouldn't have done that without the people of Papua New Guinea. It was a wonderful partnership, and that was always an incredible story. So it's like it's one of the few justifiable times when we marched off to war, because we would, the Japanese had their money printed and they were coming to Australia. They'd already been bombing Australia, and that, I met a lot of the Japanese, not a lot, but some survivors that said, yeah, we were coming, that's what we were doing. And the Australians are very privileged to get to know a lot of the diggers up there, and they knew that they were fighting to save their families here. Everyone thought that Australia would get invaded. So we weren't imperialists fighting someone else's war, we were fighting to survive. So that's what got me interested in, and I've been writing a World War II, stringing together all the Australian stories in World War II. And so I was interested in the Kokoda track and went up there and dedicating I think the most beautiful memorial, I guess, to Australians fighting anywhere. It's like the Nisharaba on the Kokoda track. And so we thought, well, we've got to do something about these the people along the track, because the kids aren't too healthy and all that. We started this small foundation. Now, I think over the last 24 months we've dedicated 3,000 teachers, and we partner with the Australian government and the Papua New Guinea government, and we pick the 6, 7, 8 brightest kids around the country and put them through university and be the leaders of tomorrow. We're lighting up PNG now. We light up the Kokoda track with solar lights, so the kids, it's wonderful now when you go up. Just lately, over the last year or two, the kids are out there doing their homework in the night instead of sitting by the fire where there's a whole lot of smoke, or it's a kerosene lamp, and they're all getting sick now. Their mothers go out in the day and put the solar-powered solar things on their back, and they bring it in, and it's a light that they can cook by, and they can charge their mobile phones, so they're doubling, they can sell their vegetables much better and stuff, and so they're doubling their income. And we just go to places that we're not affiliated with religions or anything. We're just a bunch of Australians that want to